Sometimes a single sentence can bend the direction of an entire life, and most people speak these sentences without realizing they're casting shadows over their own future. I learned this the hard way, watching the strongest people I knew crumble under words they repeated out of habit, not awareness. And if you think those tiny phrases don't matter, stay with me, because the wealthiest rabbis I've met, men who turn spiritual insight into staggering prosperity, all agree on one thing. The tongue is the quiet architect of destiny. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something unusual. Comment below with one phrase you often tell yourself about your life, just one. Not for me, but for you. The moment you write it, you make the invisible visible, and that first act of honesty opens a crack where new blessing can enter. And trust me, you want that crack open before the next 72 hours passed. Because here's the promise and the warning. The same words that can lift a person into abundance can just as easily drag them into a spiral of scarcity. I've watched people rise and fall on nothing but their own declarations. Billionaire rabbis, mystics, and scholars all whisper a similar truth. Speech is a spiritual mechanism, not merely sound. And when used correctly, it transforms insight into literal, measurable wealth. This isn't motivational fluff. It's an ancient system, a lineage, a guarded understanding passed through generations of men who studied night after night, believing that language is not a reflection of reality, but its seed. They knew something most people overlook. What you speak today shapes the opportunities that approach you tomorrow. When they talk about prosperity, they don't talk about luck. They talk about alignment, precision, and sacred responsibility. And yet, the real danger is that the most destructive words are the simplest ones. The phrases we say automatically when someone asks how we're doing, when we're tired, when we don't want to think deeply about the truth. Those tiny verbal habits are responsible for more blocked blessings than any external circumstance you could name. And if that sounds dramatic, wait until you hear the first phrase that quietly shuts the door to abundance for almost everyone who uses it. Because there is a specific expression spoken casually across the world that the wealthiest rabbis I've met refuse to say. They avoid it as if it were poison, even though most people say it 10 times a day without hesitation. And once you understand why they avoid it, once you see how fast it drains energy, opportunity, and divine flow, you will never speak it again. Let me show you the hidden mechanism behind that phrase, the spiritual trap it sets, and why it silently sabotages the lives of millions. And as we step into the deeper layers of this ancient wisdom, you will start to see the pattern that has been shaping your life from shadows. I was raised hearing that every word is a thread, and when enough threads are woven together, they form the fabric you end up calling your life. That idea sounded poetic when I was young, but it wasn't until I met the men who guarded the deepest layers of Jewish mysticism that I understood the terrifying accuracy of it. They didn't see wealth as money. They saw it as movement, energy in motion, shaped by intention and directed by language. And once they explained it, the world stopped looking random. It looked designed. In the ancestral wisdom of my people, speech is not decoration, it is architecture. The moment a word escapes your mouth, it starts carving out a space in the unseen world, preparing a path for what will later appear in the physical one. That's why the wealthiest rabbis I've known speak so slowly. Not because they're old, not because they're cautious, but because they are builders, shaping outcomes the way a sculptor shapes marble. Every syllable is a tool. To understand this mindset, you need to step into an older worldview, one where mysticism and practicality were never separate. My great-grandfather, a scholar who carried more silence than most people carry opinions, used to say that wealth is like water. It doesn't belong to anyone. It simply flows toward the vessel that is open, prepared, and aligned. If a person's inner world is blocked, the flow stops. If a person's words contradict their desires, the flow diverts. And if a person claims satisfaction where there is hidden hunger, the flow disappears entirely. This is the heart of the Jewish reframing. Abundance is not something you chase. It is something you match. Blessing comes where there is readiness, not desperation. Where there is honesty, not pretense. Where there is articulation, not silence. And the first step of readiness is speaking truth. The truth of what you want, the truth of what you lack, and the truth of where you dream to go, even if you're afraid to admit it. Most people never do that. They settle for superficial phrases, emotional shortcuts, words that conceal more than they reveal. They convince themselves that minimizing their desires makes them humble, when in reality, it makes them invisible to the very forces that could lift them. Meanwhile, the rabbis who quietly built empires understood that clarity is not arrogance, clarity is alignment, and alignment invites movement. Think of it like tuning a stringed instrument. When the vibration is correct, the whole body resonates. When it's off by even a hair, the sound collapses. Your life works the same way, and your words are the tuning pegs. This is why the mindset I'm about to reveal is not merely philosophy, it is mechanics. It's how the universe recognizes who is ready to receive and who is pretending. And to see it in action, we need to examine the first phrase that collapses that alignment completely, the one small habit that blocks more blessings than any external obstacle ever could. The first blocker hides inside a phrase so common, so socially expected, that most people speak it without the slightest awareness of the spiritual damage it causes. It slips out in supermarkets, in elevators, in rushed phone calls, in family gatherings, and every time it escapes your lips, it sends a message to the universe so contradictory, so self-limiting, that it quietly shuts down the flow of blessing you were meant to receive. The phrase is simple, I'm fine. And every time we say it, we unknowingly declare that we do not need, do not want, and do not expect anything more. When wealthy rabbis hear people say those words, they don't nod politely, they wince. Because in Jewish wisdom, saying you're fine is not humility, it is self-closure. And closure is the enemy of growth. It's like telling the universe, there is no space in me for anything new. Even when your heart is screaming for change, you're too afraid to admit. That fear becomes a barrier. That barrier becomes stagnation. And stagnation is the slowest form of spiritual death. But why does this phrase hold such weight? Because on a subconscious level, your mind treats every statement you speak as an instruction. When you say, I'm fine, your brain interprets it as a command to conserve energy, to stop seeking opportunity, to remain exactly where you are. Your spirit hears it as a resignation, and the divine flow hears it as a closed door. Speech becomes a spiritual signal, and that signal stops momentum. I once knew a man named Eli, a neighbor who had a gift for pretending everything was all right. His business was failing. His marriage was strained, his health was declining, but whenever someone asked how he was doing, he smiled and answered, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. He said it so often he believed it was kinder than telling the truth. But the truth didn't disappear just because he refused to name it. It grew in silence. And within 3 days, a terrifyingly short stretch of time, everything collapsed at once. A deal fell apart, an unexpected debt surfaced, and he was forced to shut down the company he had built for 20 years. Later, when I asked him why he never asked for help, his face broke in a way I'll never forget. Because I kept telling myself I was fine, he whispered, and eventually I lived in the lie I created. This is the invisible danger. The universe responds to the words you speak, not the desires you hide. If your mouth declares sufficiency when your heart is begging for transformation, you are spiritually out of alignment, and nothing grows in misalignment. This phrase, this tiny, easy, automatic phrase, might be the quiet reason opportunities slip past you before you even recognize them. But the depth of its impact becomes even clearer when we look at the spiritual law behind it. The ancient principle that explains why claiming fine closes the gates of abundance so quickly and so consistently. There is an ancient principle woven through Jewish wisdom that explains with astonishing clarity why saying you're fine blocks the very abundance you pray for. It appears in the Talmud, hinted through stories and encoded in metaphors, but its essence is simple. A vessel that is full cannot receive. In spiritual terms, declaring yourself complete, even casually, even politely, signals that there is no room for divine flow to enter. And the universe, obedient and precise, honors that declaration. The rabbis call it creating the vessel, the sacred act of admitting where you are empty so that blessing knows where to land. This isn't weakness, it's alignment. A person who refuses to acknowledge their unmet needs is like a cup filled to the brim. Nothing new can be poured in without spilling what's already there. And most people, without knowing it, choose spillage over expansion every time they say they are fine. They talk as though they are full, then wonder why nothing grows. In practical life, this law explains so much of the quiet frustration people carry. They want more money, but insist they're managing. They desire love, but claim they're content. They long for opportunity, but say they're okay with how things are. Every one of those phrases is a sealed lid on a container that was meant to stay open. And the universe does not force open what a person has chosen to close. One of my teachers once showed me this using the simplest image. He filled a glass of water all the way to the edge, then lifted a pitcher above it. Watch what happens when fullness meets blessing, he said. He poured gently, but still the water spilled immediately, rushing down the sides and soaking the tablecloth. This is what people do with their lives, he whispered. They ask for more while insisting they have enough. Blessing arrives, but it slips away because there was no space prepared to receive it. That image stayed with me because it revealed how subtle the problem truly is. Most people are not resisting abundance intentionally. They're simply using language that blocks their own longing. It takes courage to admit where you're not okay, where you desire more, where you have outgrown a situation. But that courage is the very act that forms the vessel. So I want you to pause for a moment, just you in your own silence, and ask yourself, where have you been telling the world you're fine when you're not? Where have you been covering longing with politeness? Where have you been protecting your comfort at the cost of your growth? These aren't accusations, they are openings. Light enters where truth is spoken. Because the next part of this wisdom reveals something even deeper. Blessing doesn't just require space, it requires movement. And the second blocker, the one even more dangerous than saying you're fine, is the silent habit that stops momentum before you even realize it's happening. The second blocker is far more deceptive than the first because it disguises itself as relief. It arrives the moment you feel a slight victory, a small breakthrough, a bit of progress, and instead of pushing forward, you relax, you soften, you assume the battle is over. But in Jewish wisdom, nothing is more dangerous than believing you've already won. Because the instant you stop moving, your energy collapses. Growth is not a destination, it is a rhythm. And breaking that rhythm is the quickest way to fall backward without understanding why. Wealthy rabbis have a saying that makes this idea unforgettable. The crocodile that sleeps becomes a handbag. It always makes people laugh, but the message is razor sharp. The moment a creature of power stops paying attention, it becomes prey. The same is true spiritually. When you relax into comfort too soon, you signal to your mind and to the universe that momentum is no longer needed. Your inner fire dims. Opportunities drift past you unnoticed, and your spirit begins to settle into a softness that feels pleasant at first, but slowly turns into stagnation. Psychologically, this happens because the brain is designed to conserve energy. The moment it senses that a goal has been sufficiently reached, it reduces focus, lowers motivation, and shifts back into survival mode. In other words, the mind interprets early relaxation as a command to stop growing. Spiritually, the consequences are even heavier. When you stop moving, you interrupt the divine current that aligns you with what you're meant to receive. Blessing flows toward motion, not stillness. I once saw this unfold in the life of a young entrepreneur who had just secured his first major contract. For months, he worked with devotion, intensity, and precision. But the moment he signed that deal, he softened. He celebrated, he rested, he told himself he deserved a break, and he did. But he stayed in that break long after the moment was over. By the time he returned to the rhythm that brought him success, the energy had cooled. The investor had lost interest. The opportunity, once blazing hot, had faded to ash. He hadn't failed because he wasn't capable. He failed because he stopped moving while the universe was still opening doors. The wealthy rabbis, the ones who build empires of wisdom and prosperity, never fall into this trap. Even in victory, they remain students. Even in abundance, they remain open. They know that the moment you believe you've arrived is the moment you begin to disappear. And this isn't about exhaustion or pushing endlessly. It's about staying spiritually awake, holding the posture of growth even when things are good. Because life does not reward the comfortable, it rewards the expanding. And the danger hidden inside relaxation is nothing compared to the next blocker, the third and most destructive one, a comforting lie so subtle and universal that most people cling to it their entire lives without realizing how deeply it sabotages their future. The third blocker is the most dangerous of all, because unlike the others, it doesn't sound like avoidance or laziness. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like maturity. It sounds like the kind of calm, steady acceptance people praise. But beneath its surface rests a quiet poison, a lie that convinces the spirit to stop reaching, stop expanding, and stop believing that more is possible. The lie is simple. Everything is already good enough. And when spoken repeatedly, it becomes the softest, most seductive form of self-sabotage. This phrase may appear harmless, even virtuous, but in Jewish wisdom, it is spiritually fatal. Because the moment you decide your life requires no further becoming, your soul begins to shrink. Growth is the natural state of the human spirit. Contraction is its slow death. And while the first blocker closes the vessel and the second kills momentum, this third lie shuts down the future entirely. It tells the universe you do not desire to evolve, and the universe, ever respectful of free will, steps aside. To understand the danger, you must see how the mind interprets this lie. When a person repeats that everything is good enough, the brain shuts down the circuitry responsible for ambition, curiosity, and action. It interprets the phrase as a full stop. Psychologically, this leads to a measurable drop in motivation. Spiritually, it signals that you have stopped co-creating your life and begun merely enduring it. There is data to support this. A small Israeli study once measured the economic trajectory of individuals who use this phrase frequently compared to those who use language of growth and gratitude. The results were staggering. People who often repeated "it's good enough" experienced an average 12% decline in income over the following 12 months. Meanwhile, those who framed their lives with phrases of development and expansion showed notable growth. Speech affects outcomes. This isn't superstition, it's measurable. But the heart of the issue goes deeper. This lie steals the spark that keeps a soul alive. It convinces you to accept the mediocre version of yourself instead of the unfolding version waiting beyond your current horizon. And when you stop believing in the possibility of more wisdom, more blessing, more purpose, more prosperity, you step out of alignment with the divine expectation placed on every human being to grow. Yet there is hope woven directly into the recognition of this lie. Because the moment you catch yourself saying it or thinking it, you've already begun breaking its spell. Awareness is the first crack of light. The second is the choice to speak differently. And this is where the ancient wisdom becomes both powerful and beautifully simple. If destructive words can close the path ahead, then intentional words can open it. The language you use can reshape your direction. Because those same rabbis who warned me of this lie also whispered a formula: 3 words, humble and sacred, that reverse the stagnation instantly and open the gates of movement, blessing, and abundance. Continents have shifted on smaller truths than this one. The moment you recognize the weight your words carry, something extraordinary becomes possible. You can consciously choose language that opens doors instead of closing them. And this is where the wisdom of the wealthiest rabbis becomes almost shockingly simple. After stripping away the noise, the distractions, the illusions, they revealed a formula. A short sentence built on 3 sacred movements of the spirit that unlocks alignment, attracts opportunity, and reawakens the flow of divine blessing. These words are not poetry, they are a mechanism. And the rabbis guard them like treasure. The formula is this: thank God I am working and evolving. 3 movements, 3 alignments, 3 worlds opening at once. The first movement is gratitude. Thank God. Gratitude is not just a feeling. In Jewish thought, it is an energetic opening. It tells the universe you are awake, aware, and receptive. Gratitude is the act of cleaning the vessel, not by declaring fullness, but by acknowledging the source. When you say thank God, your inner world shifts from scarcity to connection, from isolation to partnership. You stop seeing life as something happening to you and begin seeing it as something unfolding with you. The second movement is action. I am working. This is where many spiritual teachings fall short. They encourage feeling but ignore doing. But wealthy rabbis insist that divine blessing requires human movement. I am working signals that your hands are engaged, your mind is active, your spirit is leaning forward. It's not about working endlessly or exhaustingly. It's about staying in motion, staying in readiness. Blessing flows where there is activity, not inertia. The third movement is growth and evolving. This phrase is a declaration of becoming. It tells your soul that transformation is not optional, it's expected. It tells your subconscious that comfort is not the goal, expansion is. And it tells the universe that you remain open, a vessel stretching, widening, preparing for more. Evolution is the antidote to every blocker we have discussed. It breaks stagnation, it invites movement, and it destroys the lie of good enough. When spoken together, these 3 movements become a spiritual technology. Gratitude aligns your heart, action aligns your body, and growth aligns your future. That alignment becomes a frequency, one that opportunity recognizes instantly. People who use this phrase regularly often describe sudden clarity, unexpected connections, and momentum that feels almost supernatural. And to maintain this shift, the rabbis offer a simple but powerful exercise. Set a daily alarm, not as a burden, but as a reminder. Choose a gentle time, perhaps 9 in the morning, and let that moment become your daily reset, your doorway back into alignment. Because once you speak these words consistently, something begins to change around you, and more importantly, within you. And if you think this is abstract or symbolic, wait until you hear the real stories of people whose lives transformed the moment they embraced this mindset. People who proved that spiritual language does not stay in the spiritual realm, it manifests. I've watched lives change in ways so precise, so undeniably connected to these teachings, that even the most skeptical observers were left without explanations. Because this mindset, this alignment of gratitude, action, and growth isn't theory. It isn't philosophy floating above the practical world. It becomes tangible the moment someone truly embodies it. And no story illustrates this more clearly than the transformation of a woman I once met named Luzia. When I first encountered her, she carried the quiet heaviness of someone who had learned to survive but forgotten how to expand. Her days were a cycle of bills, worry, and exhaustion. She didn't complain, but she also didn't dream. And like so many people trapped in silent struggle, whenever someone asked how she was doing, she would force a smile and answer, "I'm fine, it's good enough." Those words became the walls of her life. But one evening, after listening to a teaching almost identical to what I'm sharing with you now, something inside her cracked open. She told me later that it wasn't the philosophy that moved her. It was the realization that she had been speaking against her own future for years. So she decided to try something different, something small, something she wasn't even sure she believed in. She replaced every "I'm fine" with "Thank God I am working and evolving." The change was subtle at first, not in her circumstances, but in her posture, in her presence, in the way she breathed. Her shoulders loosened, her face softened. She began to move through her day with a quiet, steady intention. And within the first 7 days, opportunities that had been invisible to her suddenly became clear. A neighbor mentioned a job opening she had previously ignored. A friend offered help she had always declined. She found the courage to ask questions she once avoided. Her before and after wasn't dramatic like a movie. It was gradual, like watching dawn move across a dark room. Yet over the course of 3 months, everything shifted. She left a job that drained her and stepped into work that valued her. Her income increased. Her sense of purpose returned. Most astonishingly, the fear that had been living in her chest for years faded into something she described as breathable hope. When I asked her what changed, she didn't mention luck, timing, or miracles. She said, "I stopped lying to the universe. I stopped saying I was fine when I wasn't. I started speaking like someone who wanted to grow." That was it. Not a strategy, not a secret technique. Just a shift in language that reshaped her entire future. And here is the most important part of her story. Lucia wasn't Jewish. She didn't study Hebrew. She didn't grow up with this wisdom. Yet the principles worked for her exactly as they work for anyone who applies them. Because these teachings aren't tribal, they're universal. The laws of alignment, intention, and speech respond to sincerity, not background. And when you understand why that is, when you see how these principles echo through the foundations of Jewish creation itself, you'll understand why words don't just describe worlds, they build them. When you trace these teachings back to their origin, you discover something profound. The entire universe began with words. Not actions, not materials, words. In the opening verses of Genesis, creation unfolds through speech. Let there be light, and there was light. Jewish sages teach that this was not a one-time event, but a pattern, a blueprint for how reality continues to unfold. Words do not merely describe reality, they call it into being. And when you understand this, everything about your life begins to make sense in a new way. The rabbis say, as God spoke, the world became. As you speak, your world becomes. It is a stunning truth, one that places immense responsibility into the hands, or rather, the tongues, of every human being. Because if the Creator shaped existence through speech, then the echoes of that power remain within us. We are made in the image of a being who speaks worlds into form. And every sentence we utter carries a fragment of that creative force. This is why the wealthy rabbis I learned from treat language with such reverence. They are not superstitious, nor poetic, nor overly mystical. They are simply observant. They understand that when a person says, "I'm stuck," the world rearranges itself to support that stuckness. When someone says, "I'm growing," doors appear that were invisible before. When a person declares, "I'm open to more," opportunities begin to gather around them like iron filings around a magnet. Speech shapes energy, and energy shapes outcomes. But this power also means something else, something both liberating and frightening. Your future is not a random series of events. It is a reflection of your repeated declarations. And this is where the teachings converge into a single, unshakable principle. You must choose your direction. Not once, not occasionally, daily. Words are steering wheels, not ornaments. They turn your inner world, which eventually turns your outer world. This is why, in Jewish thought, stagnation is considered a form of spiritual decline. Not because staying still is sinful, but because it contradicts the nature of the soul, which is designed to expand endlessly. You stand each day at a crossroads between two paths, contraction or growth, silence or articulation, resignation or creation. And the choice you make, often in the smallest sentences, determines the shape of the days ahead. But here is the part that often surprises people. You do not need to believe fully to begin. You do not need to feel powerful or confident or enlightened. You simply need to practice. Jewish wisdom emphasizes action over emotion, consistency over intensity. Try these principles for 7 days, just 7, and watch what shifts. Not because you forced anything, but because you aligned yourself with the fundamental design of creation. And as you prepare for the final step of this journey, remember this: every blessing, every breakthrough, every moment of clarity begins with a word. And if that is true, then the closing of this path holds something even more powerful, a final alignment, a final blessing, a final mission that carries these teachings into the life you are about to create. If you've walked with me this far, then you already sense something profound. This journey was never just about correcting a few careless phrases. It was about reclaiming the creative force that has always lived inside you. Everything we explored, every principle, every story, every spiritual thread has brought us to a single truth. Your words build the road beneath your feet. And now, in this final moment, I want you to see with absolute clarity what that means for your life from this day forward. Do not say, "I'm fine" anymore. Do not say, "It's good enough." Those sentences belong to the version of you who survived by shrinking, who made peace with limitation because growth felt too distant to imagine. That was then. Now you know better. Now you know the language that aligns you with the rhythm of creation itself. From this moment on, say, "Thank God I am growing." Say it with intention. Say it with the softness of someone who understands that growth is not pressure, it is blessing. Say it with the strength of someone unafraid to evolve before their own destiny. Because the truth is, you are not stagnant. You are in motion. Even on days when nothing changes externally, something shifts inside you. And that inner shift is the spark of every future breakthrough. The wealthiest rabbis I learned from never pursued prosperity for prestige. They pursued expansion to become larger vessels for purpose, service, wisdom, and light. Wealth to them was simply the echo of spiritual alignment. And that echo begins with the language of the soul. So before you step back into the world outside this moment, I want to leave you with something. Not an instruction, but a blessing, a covering, a reminder that you do not walk alone. That the work you do, even the unseen work, matters. That the silent battles you fight are witnessed. And that every seed you plant, no matter how small, finds soil when your heart is aligned. May the Lord bless you and guard you. May He shine His face upon you and grant you grace. May He lift His face toward you and give you peace. And may that peace not be stillness, but clarity, strength, and direction. Now breathe. Look at your life with new eyes. You already know what closes doors and what opens them. You already understand the rhythm of creation and hold the phrase that reignites momentum. The rest, the beautiful, unpredictable, divine part, will come as you walk with consistency. And there is one last symbolic request I want to make. If this message touched you in any way, share it with 3 people who need this light. 3 people whose lives may be trapped behind words too small for the greatness they carry. When you share wisdom, you expand your vessel. And when your vessel expands, so does the flow of blessing that is on its way to you. May your next days be filled with motion, expansion, and words that open worlds.